Good evening and welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us to this Transition to Residency Series interactive webinar hosted by AACOM's Council on Residency Placement, CORP, and the AOGME Residents and Fellows Council, RFC. My name is Dr. Holly Waters. I'm an assistant professor and vice chair of the Osteopathic Principles and Practice Department and director of the Predoctoral Fellowship Program at the Nova Southeastern College of Osteopathic Medicine at the Tampa Bay Regional Campus. I was on campus today. We fared pretty well in the hurricane, just a small amount of water and damage around the area, but our campus is intact, and I'm happy to be here as your facilitator for this session. Before we get started, we have a few housekeeping notes. So our opening panel is going to be recorded and available to view on the AOGME webpage within 7 days. The breakout sessions will likely not be recorded. It's possible that some of the breakout session panelists may choose to record theirs, but they'll make sure to ask permission first for the people in each breakout session. Feel free to submit questions anytime using the chat feature. We have multiple panelists here who will be fielding those throughout the session. So we are always happy to answer any questions. And make sure for people in the audience, stay muted during the opening panel. And then once we split everyone out into breakout rooms, then you can unmute to ask questions to your breakout session panelists. And if you have technical issues, please use the chat feature to notify the support people on our panel today, and they will be happy to assist you. All right, I would like to thank all of our panelists who are joining us today to speak with you, especially these in the opening panel as they share their experiences, their perspectives, and their advice in residency interviewing. I will have each of our opening panelists introduce themselves with their name, their PGY level, their specialty, their institution or program, and also if you could each share one piece of advice for once you start fielding interview offers or scheduling interviews. So we'll start with Ms. Kimberly Warfield, please.
Hi, how is everybody tonight? So I am not a PGY level. I'm a career counselor at TCOM. I have the first and second year students. Prior to that, I was residency administrator or coordinator. There's interchangeable for 25 years. So my best advice is to avoid booking too many. So we can get virtual interviews, we can get in person, right? Try not to do that back to back. Give yourself some time. You never know if especially in the virtual world, how long something's going to go, who's going to be running late. Just give yourself some time between interviews. While we're all excited to say, yes, we want the interview, you don't want to be so crammed in one day or potentially have to cancel somebody or move somebody back because somebody was running late. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, Dr. Maria Jones. So PGY level, specialty, institution, program, and one piece of advice for fielding offers.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria. I'm a current PGY 4 in emergency medicine and internal medicine at Christiana Care in Delaware. So a piece of advice I think for fielding offers is, oh, that's hard. I feel like try to, kind of similar to what was just said, but try to not say no, or try to not have to reschedule an interview with the program coordinator and director. Some of the platforms, and it's really hard to keep track of all the different platforms that use virtual interviewing. Some of them you can rearrange your interviews like without having to talk to the program director or coordinator, but some interview days you have to coordinate through the program. And so if you're going to have to coordinate through the program, try not to have to talk to the program director and tell him you want to, or her, you want to change your interview day, because that just kind of complicates things and can be kind of a look of disinterest. So if there's a program that you think you may have to reschedule, try and put that one on a date, or try to use a virtual platform to reschedule, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much. All right, next we have Dr. Bree Howerton.
Hi everyone, my name is Bree. I'm a PGY2 in emergency medicine in what's now Corwell Health East, the Detroit Dearborn Trenton program. And my piece of advice would be when you submit your application, you can go in and change your personal information, like your email. Using your school email sometimes blocks some of the interviews. They put them in your spam. So the best piece of advice I received and I would pass on would be to use like a Gmail account or a personal account that doesn't have so many firewalls so that you're getting them in a timely fashion to be able to schedule them.
Very good piece of advice. Thank you. All right. Dr. Deandra Karupu.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deandra Karupu. I am a second-year internal medicine resident at the University of Arizona, Phoenix. And I think one piece of advice, kind of going off of what Bree just said, was I created a separate email account just because we get so many emails throughout the day. And just so I would know like specifically which ones are for interviews, it would only go to this certain email. And so then I would know immediately like, okay, I need to schedule an email or schedule an interview, and just making sure you're really on top of like scheduling them as fast as you can so that you get the times and the days that you wanted. And when I was scheduling, I used a planner so I could like really see like what day had which interviews. And if I had to schedule 2 interviews on one day, then I'm like, okay, this one was a 9 a.m. one, and then this one's like a 1 p.m. one. So just for me, having that visual layout when scheduling interviews is really helpful.
Next, we have Dr. Cassandra Smith.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cassie. I'm a third-year chief in family medicine at Northwestern's McGaw campus up in Lake Forest, just north of Chicago. I went to Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine. My 2 biggest pieces of recommendation, honestly, are only interview at places that you actually see yourself going to. And then really double check those time zones, make sure that you're timing everything correctly and you are prepared at the correct time. As an interviewer, I have had interviewees hop in really late and it's just kind of awkward.
The challenges of our digital connected era. All right. And we also have Dr. Omari Baines-Ways.
Hi, everyone. My name's Amari. I'm a PGY2 in psychiatry, and I am at Carolina's Medical Center, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina. I think, everything that everyone said, I echo that. I think big thing is definitely remember your time zone and then the time zone that your interview is in. And also, I would definitely try to schedule your interviews as soon as possible. Once you get that interview invite, just go ahead and schedule it. And also make sure that you have some kind of organization to how you're scheduling, whether that be making a spreadsheet, that's what I did, whether you have a planner, you're putting it on a calendar, but make sure you go ahead and do it right then so that you're not double booking yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll go through the panel again with our next question. So could everybody briefly share one piece of advice for how to succeed on the day of the interview itself? Ms. Warfield, would you like to start?
Okay. So I think the most important thing is, of course, research the program. Look at the program, do your homework, have your questions out, but also practice some questions. You're going to get those questions from your school, just be prepared and have questions about the program. Like if you see in Doximity that they do like 2 months at this obscure hospital, ask why. Show that you've done some work to find out what's going on in that program.
Thank you. Maria.
Great question. So I think echoing what was just said, but also having your notes kind of off to the side. And morning of, I would try to like review my notes, take a break. I would try to not have clinical obligations like leading up to the minute of the interview, so you can kind of just relax and get in the mindset. And then when you are like on the interview, like in the interview, make sure the questions you're asking aren't like easily found on the website. So like leading up to the interview, I would try to review the website and peruse it. And I had my spreadsheet with the categories of things that were important to me, questions I wanted to ask, and I would try to fill that out based on the website and then review it in the morning. And if I had a hole in my spreadsheet for that program, I would try to ask that question. But like as someone who interviews, getting asked questions that like have been sent to the applicants in the pre-interview packet and things like that is just a little disappointing to me because I'm like, no, read our packet, read our information. So doing a little bit of homework ahead of time and then reviewing that beforehand so you're sure that you're like asking the right questions to the right programs.
Bree.
I would reiterate that. It sometimes looks bad as an applicant if you don't have, like, if I know that it's really easy to find and then you're just asking questions that I perceive them to be the casual, like, oh, it's standard questions and you didn't actually look at our program, I get a little turned off. But for me, kind of preparing the day of, make sure that you've eaten, because that's important. Little things about taking care of yourself. One thing that I did was I kind of prepared the environment that I was going to interview in. So for me, all the virtual interviews, I had to like stack a stack of pathology and cell bio books just to get it up to the angle to look well. And then I created a power playlist for like the 15 minutes or so before my interview. And I listened to it before every interview. And I was always so much more confident, so much more laid back, which was important for me in successfully interviewing.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Deandra.
Wow, I don't know if I have much more to add. Those are all like really great tips. I was going to say the same thing, like make sure you really kind of do your research and have like unique questions to ask the program about. I guess like there's always awkward silences too. I feel like I remember being in like in a main session and then you get put into like the individual interviews, but like don't be afraid to use that time, like get to know some of the other applicants. I don't know if they're watching or anything, but just like be talkative, like don't be afraid, don't be shy and just like turn off your camera, but like you can talk to the other applicants at that time. And then yeah, just making sure you're like practicing your interviews and like I'm sure that they're going to talk to you about like making sure your background is like professional. I had to interview in like my old high school room. So I had like a bunch of like medicals in my background, but it actually ended up being like a good talking point because then like that was the first thing that everyone saw. So then it was kind of like an easy way to ease into a conversation with my interviewers. So if you have something kind of people just put like plants, but I'm like, can you really talk about how much can you talk about plants for? But so if you have something unique, you can kind of put in the background, that helps.
Excellent. All right. Last but not least, Omari, anything to add?
I would say, the big thing for me was preparing for the interview. So making sure that your background is, decent. You don't have like your laundry all in the background and, you can see your closet and all these things. I think also just literally prepping for the interview was a big thing for me too, was doing mock interviews. Because, you do weird things that you didn't know that you did, especially through video. You might be like moving your hands a lot, or you might be bouncing your leg and you can literally see your like head shaking. So that's something that I would definitely think about prior to you doing an actual interview, is doing a mock interview, even if it's with one of your friends.
Dr. Waters, I have a couple of suggestions too.
Great.
Um,
Thank you,
I
Casey.
definitely echo a lot of this stuff. I love what Deandra said with like getting to know your co-interviewees. At my program, I interviewed with one of my co-residents, and we think fondly of like, oh my God, we've known each other really since the start, and that's really cool. With Maria's spreadsheet idea, definitely create an Excel spreadsheet, because at the end of interview season, when you're trying to make your rank list, things tend to blend together really easily, and it can be a big challenge to really be able to identify who's 3 and 4 and why are they different, and those things can really matter. So definitely create that spreadsheet to make it easier. I agree with what Bree said. Have snacks on your table, have your coffee, your water, another fun bevy, whatever. I had like all the cups. So those are really big. The background's really important, and also what you wear. One of the biggest pieces of recommendation that I got just from general interview stuff is look like you belong in that program specifically. If they have certain colors associated with them, like Northwestern purple, wear a purple accent, have purple in your background, create that environment that you're already part of that team. That's a really big one. And then when you're doing your research, look at the current residents and look at where the alumni have gone to see what the interests are and what opportunities there might be for you to contribute to things that are already going on, or be able to provide something that's new to the program.
All right. Thank you so much. So we'll move on to our next question. I think I'll have the panelists go in reverse order. So since I skipped over you, Cassie, if you don't mind going first for this next one, can you briefly share one piece of advice for following up and next steps after the interview?
Absolutely. Thank you cards are a must. I hand wrote all of them. I created a template of something short and sweet, 3 sentences, one pretty generic sentence, one specific to that program, and then one sentence specific to that interviewer or however I interacted with that person. So during my interview process, when I was taking notes, I wrote down what I spoke with each interviewer about. That way I could kind of bring that back in, and so they could remember that moment that we had together. And then I usually sent out my thank you cards a couple weeks after, because I wanted to give the program an opportunity to explore other applicants too, but then bring me back into mind again, one more time throughout the interview season. If there's, a program or two that are really high on the list, maybe a month or so before the ranks lists and stuff are due, you could reach out again. But I wrote a thank you card to literally any and everybody that I possibly interacted with throughout that interview process with every program. So buy a big stack of cards and don't delay starting those cards. Just get rolling with them as you do your interviews, because again, they all kind of blur together and it's a lot of work if you wait.
All right, Omari.
Yeah, exactly what Cassie said. I didn't handwrite cards, so that's amazing. But I did already have a template for like each person, like whether it be the PD, whether it be even the program coordinator, the residents, all of that. I had a template, and not that it was like word for word every single time I just copy and paste at that, but I would tweak it exactly what Cassie said to say, I really appreciate you taking the time to tell me about XYZ thing. So I definitely think that for me personally, I did it more timely. I guess I did it within like a week of me having the interview. But I definitely think that sending thank you notes is a must. And what I will say is sometimes you don't get the email of everyone, and that's okay. I would just email it to like the program coordinator and be like, hey, can you pass this along to so and so?
All right, I don't know if we lost Dr. Howerton, but Deandra, would you like to?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have Deandra go and then Bree. How about that?
Yeah, I sent emails out to like the program coordinators as well, because they actually do a lot like behind the scenes with all the interviewing. So I think like just showing your appreciation for them and like how much they do on those interview days is really, really helpful. So I would email the program coordinators and then like all the people you interviewed with. And I actually sent my emails like right after that, like within like 1 to 2 days of the interviews. Just be wary, because some programs will say specifically do not send them emails or thank you cards. So do not send them if they say to not send them. And then with like my templated kind of email that I would write, I would kind of, as Cassandra mentioned, one specific like unique thing you talked about during that conversation so that they would remember you. And then I also included like why I was drawn to that program, just as like a little like, especially if it's a program you really want to go to, just kind of re-emphasizing if you didn't get a chance during the interview to showcase like why you want to go to that program. And then also in that email, if there was anything that like you didn't get a chance to tell them, like if like a lot of times like my time would like get cut short and we would like go back into the main room. So if there's anything that you was missing, that would be a good opportunity in that thank you letter too, to like just give additional information.
Thank you, Deandra. All right, Bree, what would you recommend for follow-up after the interview?
I also think that handwritten letters are kind of a lost art. And so I did that for my residency applications, and I tried to get them in within the next couple of days, sort of similar to what everyone else had said. My program in particular, and a few other programs that I interviewed at, would willingly share that if we were high on your list or they were high on your list, we could do shadow shifts and second looks and things like that, which that was something that I tried to do with follow-up for was interested in that I had maybe already signaled at the time. That was something that I utilized as something to sort of stand out.
Thank you. All right, Maria.
I mean, I echo everything everyone said. I do think it is relatively both program and specialty specific, whether or not thank yous are encouraged. And I will echo that if programs say, please don't write thank yous, don't do it. It's not a trap. They're not testing you. They just don't want them. And it would be a bad look for then you to ignore that and do it anyway. But I think that's probably less common in most specialties. It depends on the program again, email versus handwritten. I think it's kind of personal preference, personal program preference. So I completely echo everything everyone said. A piece of advice for post-interview, which is a little less follow-up geared and more just like for your own reflection. Find out how you can take your notes and keep them in your record. So when you look back at the end of the season, you remember the program. Kind of like what Cassie was saying, like you're not going to remember anything about these programs like a couple weeks, even like, I don't know, sometimes the next day I'd be like, what? I don't remember. It's on Zoom, so it's really hard to like put virtual faces to a whole environment. So I had my like I mentioned, my spreadsheet, but then I'm a really visual learner. So I made a note card for every program. And at the end, I had the name of the program on one side. On the other side, I wrote like the 2 or 3 like thoughts I had about the program, the feeling it gave me, and my favorite part about it. And then I, after every interview, pinned them on a cork board in the order I saw myself ranking those programs. And it was kind of fun to see the list kind of grow over the season and kind of change order over the season. And then I could be like, why did I like this place? Oh, right, because they like meet once a month as residents, and they really felt like fun and happy in the like pre-interview dinner. And so that helped me kind of keep a memory of them and then pair that with my spreadsheet.
Dr. Waters, you're muted.
Yep. Thank you. Ms. Warfield, anything to add?
Oh, yes. So 2 things. So my first thought was been covered. Thank you. Notes, that's been covered well. Some programs greatly appreciate them. My programs and all my faculty did. They would bring them to the rank order list meetings, and that would be a check mark on you if you sent that note. So, but the ones who don't want them, they definitely don't want them. Okay. So my 2 things are: do not disregard that coordinator or that administrator who has, well, however it's called, coordinator, administrator, manager. That is your residency mom in most cases. Do not disregard them. Do not disregard their opinion of you. They have say in general in a great program. They should have say in the rank order list because they will be the person emailing you the most and asking for the most from you outside of the chief resident. Okay. Don't disregard that person. Give them respect and know that they are part of the whole process. Okay. Number 2. So when we came to our rank order list meetings, one of the things that in multiple programs that I've managed, social media presence was a huge thing. Okay. Be sure that your social media is what you want to present to these programs, that is professional and it is what you want them to know about you. Okay. I will tell you that my residents were better social media detectives than I ever could be. Okay. They would go through your social media, they would look at it. They want to, so as much as you want to fit someone's culture, they want you to fit their culture. Okay. So that's important, right? So my 2 pieces of advice: don't disregard that administrator, manager, coordinator. They're very important and they will make your life easy or they will make it hard. Okay. And then your social media presence, please be very aware of what you have out there and what it says about you.
Thank you. All right. So with our last question before we get into the breakout rooms, one more important piece of advice for succeeding in residency interviews. So anything that hasn't been covered previously, feel free to add it to this Q&A section, and we'll start in the previous order from the beginning. So Ms. Warfield, what's one more important piece of advice that you want students to have?
Consider your partner, your spouse. If you are looking at a program in Timbuktu and Walmart is not there and they're like from Chicago, this is a real situation I've been in. Like, it's a big deal for your spouse. If they can't get the things they're used to having, absolutely, spouses make all the sacrifices for us. But consider that person. If you know it's somewhere your spouse is going to be miserable for the next 3 years, that's going to affect your health. So really think about that.
Thank you. All right, Maria.
So I would definitely echo that, but also I would say to, not that to make you spend more money, but utilize, if you're not going to do a mock interview with a friend or record yourself doing a mock interview, like my school paid for a program called Big Interview Medical, which was phenomenal. Everyone got it. It had like multiple different pages of like mock interview questions in different categories. So they had like the social questions, they had like the personality assessment questions, then they had questions like mock questions in each specialty you would interview in, and they would record you on these mock questions. It was like an AI software, and I interviewed like 4.5 years ago at this point, so it was like AI then, so I'm sure it's even better now, and it would grade you on your recording based on how you made eye contact, if you used filler words, the speed and cadence of your voice. It was awesome. So I did a mock interview with a friend, and they're like, yeah, you did great. And then I did it with this AI thing, and it was like, you said like 15 times, and your eye contact's horrible, and you talk really fast, which I do when I'm excited, so I apologize today. But that was super, super helpful. So even if like you and like 10 friends like split a subscription or talk to your, clinical advising team about it, and I'm sure there's lots of programs out there, and maybe there's even free ones, but something like that was super, super helpful for me in just like the logistics of planning virtual interviews.
Thank you. All right, Bree, one more important piece of advice from you.
I think for me, just remembering that you're supposed to be having fun. This is supposed to be the culmination of all of your hard work since you were 5. And unlike up until this time, this really is a two-way street, right? You're not being accepted to residency. It's called a match process because you are giving to them as much as they are giving to you. These people that you're going to be with, you're way closer with them than your family for the next 3 to 8 years, depending on where you're at. These people, the area, what you can do for fun or not have for fun. All of those things are really important. So it's a true matching process for you, not just I'll take whoever will take, which I was guilty of saying all the time, but it's not real. You really want to be in a place where you're going to thrive, where you're going to be happy.
Thank you so much. That's so important. All right, Deandra.
I guess going off of that, I think one of the questions that I found like important to ask is making like usually they have a time when you talk to the residents and making sure you're asking the residents like what do they do to like socialize, like do they actually like hang out with the other residents, because I think that really gives you like insight into the program, whether like there's a community amongst the residents and if that's like a community you want to be a part of. And when I was interviewing, I had made a list like, okay, these are going to be my questions for my panelists, these are going to be my questions for the program director, and then these are going to be questions for the residents. So like making sure you have questions for each of the groups of people you're going to be interviewing with, because with the residents, I feel like you can kind of ask more questions. Do they give you maternity leave? Like how do you do social hours with your co-residents and things like that? And then another thing is like kind of going off of like what Maria was saying and how your rank list is going to change after each interview, making sure as soon as I finished every interview, I wrote like a pro and a con list so that I could really, have it fresh in my mind, like all the things I liked about the program and all the things I didn't like about the program. And then and then at that point I would like start like adjusting them in my rank list. Cause then when you finalize your rank list, you can look back at that pro con list and really kind of tweak it a bit.
Thank you. All right, Cassie.
Definitely just like get excited. Like this is your time to shine. This is your, they've already looked at your scores. They've already looked at your whatever from med school. Get excited to really just show off and brag a little bit about yourself and how great you are and how awesome of a doctor you're going to be. I would write down my short list of things I wanted to make sure that I talked about in my interviews. So the things I was involved in med school that I was like, this is an important piece of me. I need to make sure I talk about my international involvement. I need to talk about legislation. I need to talk about this because I didn't want to talk about the exact same thing to every single interviewer because I know that I'm a very diverse applicant and I wanted to make sure that each program got all of those things. So literally for each interview, I had it written down and I would cross it off. I was like, okay, I talked about Soma, and what I did with that, like done, versus like, okay, now I talked about my trip to Cameroon with someone else. Like I made a list and I made sure that I talked about all the different things that I have, because it's easy to just fall in and have the same answers for similar questions. But they want the full picture of you, and it's hard to do that in really quick interviews, and they're going to go by really fast. So have it all written down in front of you.
All right, Amari.
So everything everyone said, awesome. One thing that I will say is definitely try to ask your questions to the right person. Sometimes, students will ask a question that's more for residents to like the PD, like, oh, where do the residents like to hang out? That's a question that you definitely need to gear towards the residents. Also, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Deandra. I definitely made a template of questions that I would ask to each kind of person. The PD, I always ask this question at program A, program B, program C. The attendings, I always ask this certain question. For the residents, this certain question, just so you kind of have an overall playing field, I guess you would say, or just what each program says about these questions. And also someone had also said this about making sure that at the end of each interview, you write down what you liked, what you didn't like, because it is going to blur by the time February comes around. You're not going to remember the difference between program A and program Z. And I think something that really helped me, not only writing about it, but talking about it with family members, or my spouse, they'll remember, well, you were really excited when you talked about program B. So just some things to think about, and also know your priorities, as far as what are you interested in a program, and make sure that you're asking those kind of questions that pertain to your priorities.
Excellent. Thank you so much to all of our opening panelists for these great tips. And thank you to our other panelists for monitoring and fielding questions in the chat.